Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about some of my favorite nonfiction books. So once again, welcome or welcome back. I am so glad that you decided to click on this video today. So like I said, today I will be talking about all of my favorite nonfiction books. I don't want to say all of them, actually. That's not accurate. These are just some nonfiction books that I think will appeal to a wide audience like you and that I really enjoyed. So these are kind of all over the place as far as topics and whether it's like a narrative nonfiction or memoirs. I tried to keep the celebrity memoirs off the list because that seems like another video I could do because I've read a lot of celebrity memoirs. So let's just get into the video. So the first book on this list is Hey Hun, Sales, Sisterhood, Supremacy, and the Other Lies Behind Multi-Level Marketing by Emily Lynn Paulson. I read this earlier this year, so you might have heard me talk about it. I really enjoyed it. So this book it's a part memoir, part expose kind of, but it does follow one woman's experience working her way up to the top of an MLM and kind of how it all crashed down on her. It also deals with her experiences with alcoholism, particularly how much drinking is encouraged in the MLMs, and like the socializing part is very drinking, alcohol focused. So it was just really interesting to read about. She makes really great points about the similarities between multi-level marketing companies and cults, and it's very well researched while also feeling very personal to her. And I think that can be a little bit hard to seem like you're a true researcher when you have experience, but it just seems like she wanted to share what happened to her, and she had so much like factual information as well. And I find MLMs to be awful and predatory, but I really do find them fascinating. And so I really enjoyed reading this book. The next one is Fly Girl by Anne Hood. I know I have discussed this one on my channel as well, but this one is super special to me because it follows a flight attendant from the 1970s in the US. She worked for TWA, and it just follows her experiences going through rigorous training and what they were expected to do on aircraft as far as service back then, how the airlines have changed because of certain world events, and all the things she's gotten to do and see as a flight attendant. And it was really fascinating to me as a current flight attendant who, I don't know, it was kind of one of those situations where it was like the more things change, the more they stay the same. I don't know, like there was so much that I can completely relate to because it still happens or it's still the same way, but there was also so much that feels so far removed from like the things that I have to do, like certain like security protocols. Like obviously I can't talk about them, but the way that things were just so like lax, and the pilots could just like come out of the flight deck, and you know, it's such a different world now. And you know, the fact that they would serve you like 5 courses in first class, and they would do it, you know, it was really fascinating to see what it was like back in the 70s when flying was still pretty glamorous. And I really enjoyed this, and I think even, you know, anyone outside the industry would still find this really fascinating, probably even more so because it'll probably all feel new, like new information. So definitely check this out. It's really good. And the audiobook is read by the author, and it's pretty short, so you can definitely plow through it in a few hours. The next book is What We Don't Talk About When We Talk About Fat by Aubrey Gordon. This is just absolutely a must read. This is a book by Aubrey Gordon, who is a like writer and a fat activist, and she co-hosts the podcast Maintenance Phase, which highly recommend checking out. It's really good. It gets down to like the nitty-gritty of the fact that being anti-fat is like the last acceptable bias. You can say something fat phobic and people aren't like, I don't want to associate with you. Like, people still like allow this talk and behavior in their life, whereas like if someone said something racist or sexist or homophobic, people would be like, hey, 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 hey. So to me, this was just a really important book. And it gets down to so much about how, like, even within the fat community, there's like small fat and like very fat. And I think there was another phrase too, like super fat. I don't know. I mean, obviously, these are all kind of subjective here, but at the same time, like, you know, it was just enlightening to me as a small person. I you know, have definitely struggled with weight issues, but like I've never been plus sized. So, you know, it's just a different reality that I think needs to be recognized better. And I found this book to be incredible and really informative, really passionate, and I very, very highly recommend it. There's also a lot of talk in it about how fat acceptance and fat positivity is so much more than just like feeling good about yourself and self-esteem, which are great things, but we need change. A person can legally be denied employment because of their weight. There are studies that show that fat survivors of sexual assault are less likely to be believed than thin counterparts, not to mention what they have to go through when they see a doctor, and everything that could possibly be wrong with them all comes back to, well, if you lose weight, then maybe this wouldn't happen. It was very informative. I learned so much, and it really made me take a hard look at my actions and my implicit biases, and it was fantastic. Next is one of my absolute favorites, and that is Bad Blood by John Carreyrou. So this follows Elizabeth Holmes and the Theranos situation, which I'm sure I don't need to explain, but I will anyways. It was a company founded that was supposed to be able to test for all kinds of stuff with like one prick of your finger, so it wouldn't need vials of your blood. It was just going to be super simple and portable, and it was going to be in Walgreens stores, and you know, an incredible concept, except for the fact that it didn't work and it didn't exist. And Elizabeth Holmes founded her company with no knowledge on how to make this into a thing. She basically had an idea and ran with it, in the sense that she found investors and she dropped out of college. And that's not to say anything about people that drop out of college, but like, she wants to work in medicine, and that's generally something that's gonna require a higher level of education. And, you know, so it all came crashing down on her when a couple of the younger interns, I think, blew the whistle on her. And John Carreyrou is the one who blew the story open. They came to, and it blew up, and I became absolutely obsessed with this case, and I still am. I had like a whole little celebration after her sentencing and all of that. But this is just a very interesting story, and it just blows your mind how someone can do this to other people, because obviously, you know, it put lives at risk. People died because of her technology that didn't actually exist, and she was... Anyways, highly recommend this. It is a sort of narrative nonfiction, and I really loved it. Another one that might not be everyone's cup of tea, but I thought was brilliant, is The Great Stewardess Rebellion by Nell McShane Wolfhart. So this is exactly what it sounds like. This follows the early days of commercial air travel and how, you know, having flight attendants, stewardesses was such a like novel concept. I mean, they'd never ever needed that before. It was a job that so many people wanted because you could do it as a young person, and it was like back in those days you didn't really have a ton of job options as a young woman. You could be a teacher or a nurse or like a stay-at-home mother and wife. So it was like such an interesting thing to learn about how it all started, and the different requirements were like just You had to like not be gaining any weight. You had to wear makeup and your hair done all the time, and you had to wear like a girdle. You couldn't get hired if you were married or had any children, and no matter what, when you were 32, you were done. So it was like really interesting to read about. And then the best part about this book, which is, you know, we get all of that stuff in the beginning, and then it starts to cover how much the flight attendants kind of helped lead the labor movement. This is obviously another one that's very personal to me because I wouldn't be in the career path that I am without these women paving the way and making our working conditions livable. I loved how well researched this book was and how straightforward the storytelling was, but it didn't lose like the emotion in it at all. This was just, it was really good. Obviously, this isn't going to be like everyone's favorite, but especially for me right now, my company is going through some pretty intense contract negotiations with the flight attendants, and there's a possibility of an upcoming strike. So things are tense, and like a book like this, I should probably reread because it's just going to make me feel empowered. And I think, you know, a lot of people recently have kind of been opened their eyes to how much workers suffer and sacrifice for these companies and how much people are taken advantage of. And this book is a great example of that. We still have a lot of progress to make, but this was really eye-opening and fascinating to read about. The next one, again, probably not going to be for everyone, but it is Cheated by Andy Martino. This book follows the 2017 Astros cheating scandal. So if you are not a baseball lover or don't follow sports much, you probably maybe don't know, but in 2019 it came out that the Houston Astros had been stealing signs and cheating during regular season and postseason games in 2017, and some of this may have also taken place during the 2018 and 2019 seasons. There was a huge investigation launched, and it's a touchy subject for many baseball fans, and I think the Astros' reputation has been tainted for the foreseeable future, and it's a shame because there's some good players on that team, but now it feels like we may never know if, you know, they earned that World Series trophy. If I didn't mention that, they did win the World Series in 2017, so it became a whole thing because, like, did they really earn it? We'll never know. So this book's really interesting because in addition to covering all of the stuff about the sign stealing scandal, it kind of goes back to all different kinds of sign stealing stuff from the past and all kinds of different ways it has evolved along with the game as technology has evolved. So have the sophistication level of how we steal signs. So it really just was eye-opening, and it made me think about certain players and other people involved differently because there's a lot of, I think, public opinion of stuff and of people that maybe don't deserve it as much and not as much scrutiny on others that do deserve it. And I found this to be a really interesting book, and I love baseball, so it was a really eye-opening read, and I do appreciate how nuanced it was. This isn't like, okay, these guys are bad guys and these guys are good guys. You know, we get to learn about people's backgrounds and just kind of how it all turned into what it became. Even if you're not a big baseball fan, but you are a sports fan, you will like this. Additionally, if you just like a good scam, a good scandal, probably a good pick too. Next is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. This is an incredibly powerful and heartbreaking book. If you haven't heard of it, it is a memoir written by the girl who was sexually assaulted on Stanford's campus and was known to the world for a while as Emily Doe. It became very huge news because the rapist was named Brock Turner, and he was a Stanford swimmer, and he was like from a super rich white family, and he barely got a slap on the wrists. It was just appalling, especially seeing how much this impacted her. So she tells her story, and it is just, it's so breathtaking. It is enraging, and it just goes to show how much society doesn't want to believe victims. And it broke my heart, but it is written like, you wouldn't think that this was a memoir. You would think this was fiction. The way that she writes is just so stunning. I don't even know how else to describe this book. It's just incredible. Read it. I know I say that about all the books I recommend, but this one will tear you apart and somehow fill you with hope and courage. So let that sink in. And the last one is a book that maybe won't appeal to everyone, but I still think it is something everyone can relate to and just kind of enjoy, and that is Where Nobody Knows Your Name by John Feinstein. This follows 9 men who are either players, managers, or umpires in the minor leagues of baseball, and how hard it is, basically, what a life it is, and how you can work so hard and never have that dream realized. So this book really, it just opens your eyes to how much things are different from what they seem on the outside. Because you can see a guy come up from AAA, which, if you're not a baseball fan, is like the highest level of minor league baseball. So if you get called up to the majors and, a guy makes a bunch of errors and maybe can't hit, and we just rag on him, as fans, thinking these guys got to come up here and be able to deliver. And at the end of the day, thinking about the process that it takes to even play one day in the majors is mind-boggling. What a small percentage that is. And it was just incredibly eye-opening to what they have to go through, and how you can work for your entire life at something and give up so much and still really never make it. And a lot of the living conditions and pay between the majors and the minors are insane. The difference between what you're paid and how you travel and what kind of hotels you get put up in. And so I learned so much, and it made me definitely, I think, a more sensitive and a more informed baseball fan. It definitely got me in the feels. So I don't even think if you have to like sports or baseball, because there's a lot that's just so human about the stories that are told, that I think a lot of people could relate to it or find it accessible. Okay, I know I said that was the last one, but I have to throw one more in there, and that is You'll Never Believe What Happened to Lacy by Amber Ruffin and Lacy Lamar. This is a book by these 2 sisters. Amber Ruffin is a comedian, and she's been on Late Night with Seth Meyers for a long time, and she does have her own show now. Anyways, they are sisters. Amber lives in New York City now, and her sister Lacy still lives in their home state of Nebraska. And the book is just basically them talking about the crazy racist stories that happen to her sister constantly. And it's I can't even, these stories, they sound so unbelievable, but also believable, because people are awful and clueless. So, I mean, especially for people that are white, I would definitely recommend reading this, because, these are stories that are super out there, and you're I can't believe someone would say that. But, when I look back at my life, I'm I wonder if I ever did something that was so stupid and I didn't even realize it. Stupid, offensive, or just really out of touch. So it's just something that I found to be good for self-reflection. And the stories in this are funny, but not funny. It just, it's really great. And I listened to the audiobook, which I highly recommend, because it was hilarious. It's just these 2 sisters laughing together. It kind of felt like a podcast in a way. And I think this is just a really good way to get some education on racism without being super serious, I guess. And you know, there's definitely room for both serious and non-serious books, but this I really enjoyed it for many, many reasons. So those are some of my very favorite nonfiction books. I hope you enjoyed this video. I would love to know what your favorite nonfiction books are, and if you would like a video of my favorite celebrity memoirs, let me know in the comments. I love them. I know it's not everyone's favorite, but I can definitely recommend some if there is a demand for it. So let me know in the comments. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you in the next